Okay, I just have to say, you guys, I've recorded this episode 3 times. This is my 3rd time recording this, and part of the reason for that is that I recently got Botox. I actually got Dysport. I thought it was pronounced Dysport. It's pronounced Dysport. And my face is frozen in areas that it's not usually frozen. And if you're looking at me on video, it doesn't look bad at all. It looks amazing, actually. I love it so much. But what happens is you inject this stuff into your face, and the muscles that you don't usually use, you start to use because the ones that you usually use are more frozen. And my neck is like hurting me when I'm talking. I think even in my vocal, I didn't get any Botox in my neck, but obviously there are certain facial muscles that I can't use to talk, and other muscles are compensating for those muscles. And it's like my neck hurts when I'm talking, my mouth hurts when I'm talking. So these other muscles are going to have to get used to it. But you know what? That's totally fine by me because I am just a happier woman when I have this stuff in my face. And I am so unashamed to tell you that, and I'm proud of it. But this is the first time that I have ever done Dysport instead of Botox, and I was obviously like really hesitant to do anything other than Botox because Botox is kind of like the tried and true method of getting rid of wrinkles and lifting my eyebrows and doing all the other wonderful things that it does. I don't do it nearly often enough. And actually, the reason for that is because where I live, it's just like astronomically expensive. And I just can't. Like, I can't do it. Given, like, the number of units that I wanna have in my face, I know I don't live in Texas anymore, but just the knowledge that if I did, it would literally be half the price. It was too much for me, so I would go, like, once a year. I would absolutely love it, and then I would, like, freak out about how much it was, and I wouldn't do it again for another year, which if you know about getting Botox is kind of pointless. Like, you should keep up with it and do it, like, every 3 or 4 months. So if you do it like once a year, it's going to go away after 3 months. It actually goes away more quickly depending on how quick your metabolism is. So if you have a really fast metabolism, it's going to go away more quickly. Mine lasts like about 3 months, basically. I would say like maybe 3 or 4 months. But if you're not going to keep going, it's like you're just going to go back to where you started and then you're going to go do it again. And so it's really best if you can go regularly. But I haven't done that until recently. I finally reached out to a friend of mine. And this is not an ad for this place, by the way. I just am obsessed. They did such an amazing job and they're so sweet and wonderful. My friend, a friend of mine, I reached out to her. I'm like, you always look amazing. Tell me where you're going for your injections because I can't go to this place like across the street from my house anymore. It's just driving me insane that like your regular run of the mill Botox is this expensive. And she's like, I'm totally on the same page as you. You have to try this place called Luma Aesthetics. So if you live in the Aspen Valley, if you live in the Roaring Fork Valley, in Glenwood Springs, there is a place called Luma Aesthetics, and they are amazing. I went to go see Ashley. She does not know that I'm recording this right now. I just feel like I needed to tell her how much I appreciate her and tell all of you about her. And they are like you like usually like being reasonably priced isn't necessarily associated with being out of this world incredible. They are absolutely both. They are the best med spa experience I've ever had. And I will be going back and I'll be going back regularly because um I feel great about it and I love how it came out. But anyway, I asked her before she started the injections. There's like 3 different types of Botox now. There's Botox, there's Dysport, and then there's Juvo, I think. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I saw ads for all the different kinds in the waiting room and I decided to ask her about it before she got started. I usually do Botox without question. And she said, you know, she actually really prefers Dysport because it gives like a more natural look and you can actually still move your face. And this might sound funny to some of you, but when somebody tells me that something that I'm doing for an aesthetic reason is more natural looking, I always hesitate a little bit. Of course, I want to look natural, but I also want it to take effect. So I'm not always as enthusiastic about like the really natural option. Sometimes I want it to look like, oh, I did something. Like I want my face to look different. That's why I'm here. Um, but she said like Botox is known for being like more of a super freeze, like more of like a really tight look. And that she prefers Dysport because she can like move her forehead and she has like her normal facial expressions. And I just trusted this woman and I'm so glad I did. And I'm so glad that I went this route. The other benefit of using Dysport is that it actually activates in like 2 to 3 days. So I noticed that the next morning, the day of, I was already starting to see the effect. And the next morning, I totally saw it. And yesterday and today, which is days 3 and 4, it's totally in effect. It's 100% there. And I really think it's the results are fantastic. Sorry if it sounded like I was trailing off there for a minute. I actually had to stop recording and answer. My husband was calling me, and we were talking about Yom Kippur and plans for tomorrow, which is actually so much of what I wanted to talk about today. But I ended up talking about Botox, which is fantastic. But anyway, just to wrap that up, so happy I went with the Dysport. I do feel like not only does it allow me to move my face more, but it looks incredible, and it activates in like 2 to 4 days. So you're not looking at like waiting 2 weeks to see the full results, which, like, who wants to do that, right? Unless you're really going very regularly. But absolutely love it and couldn't recommend Luma Aesthetics. Ashley at Luma Aesthetics was amazing more highly. So now moving on to more, maybe more serious stuff. Today is the day before Yom Kippur. So if you don't know already, I am Jewish, and I'm so proud to be Jewish, and I love being Jewish. And I have only grown prouder and more grateful to be Jewish as I've gotten older, which is largely, I think, to do with the fact that I married somebody who is also Jewish, whose cousins are they're very religious, practicing Jews, and they've taught me so much about the beauty of my religion. And I have, as a result of that, we are part of such a wonderful, wonderful congregation here that has continued to teach me so many wonderful things about my religion. And it's really funny. Like, I came to all these conclusions about life sort of on my own accord as I was growing up. I was raised Jewish, but I got pretty distant from it as a late teenager and my early 20s as well. And I find that it's really interesting because I sort of found Judaism on my own, even though I didn't call it that. Excuse me, even though I didn't call it that. And there are just so many beautiful traditions about Judaism that I constantly find myself wishing I could share with more people. And whenever I do, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you have to do a podcast about that. You have to talk about this more. I never knew that." And just so many wonderful concepts and tools for life, really, that I think are universal, and I don't think enough people know about them. So I felt like Yom Kippur was a wonderful introduction to that, because this is the holiest day of the year for the Jews. And it is the Day of Atonement, which, if you grew up Jewish, this can be very heavy and this can be a very scary day. And I'm certainly one of those people who was raised with, this is the Day of Atonement. This is the day where we say sorry for the things that we did wrong. I had a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. It made me feel, this day brought up feelings in me that I was somehow a bad person. I felt disconnected with God, which is really interesting, because I was reading something the other day on Chabad.org about how atonement is, if you spell it out, it's at one mint, at one, and like it's being at one with God. It's actually the opposite of how I was feeling as a child. And this is something I've learned as I've gone through my life. That feeling that I had, that guilt and that shame and that disconnection, was exactly that. That isn't the truth. Like, when I feel that way, I am disconnected. When I'm connected, I feel the opposite of that. I feel at one. I feel this sort of inner joy, this inner knowing that I am good enough, that I'm loved. But when I'm disconnected, I feel the opposite. And that feeling of disconnection has become an indicator for me throughout my life that something is off. If I'm feeling that way, it's not that that's true. It's that there's something going on that is causing me to feel disconnected. And that when I am connected, I feel the opposite. I feel loved. And all of these notions, these things that we do on Yom Kippur. So I think the most famous Yom Kippur ritual is fasting. So grown adults, or adults age 13 and beyond, because 13 is the year that we become a Jewish adult, become a bar bat mitzvah, we are expected to fast and to not eat. And let me just tell you, I've barely done this in my life. I think I've done it successfully maybe 3 times, and that's generous. It might just be 2. But from sundown the night before Yom Kippur, which is tonight, which is Kol Nidre, to sundown the next day, so it's for a 24-hour window just about, we don't consume food, water, any of that stuff. And I used to look at this as a punishment when I was a kid. I believed that fasting was something that we did because we were bad and we had to repent for our sins on this one day of the year. And I think that that was what was taught to me, honestly, by the adults in my life, and to no fault of their own. I think that that messaging has trickled down the generations, but that is not how I see it at all anymore. So my favorite explanation of why we do this is that we're the most connected with God on this day than we are of any day of the rest of the year. And there's this idea that any type of distraction is unnecessary, that it takes us away from that connection. But of course, like, who's looking at food as a distraction, right? It's sustenance. So my real favorite explanation is that the angels, they don't eat, they don't drink, they don't need to, because they're at one with God, right? And when we practice, when we celebrate Yom Kippur, when we observe Yom Kippur rather, we are at one with God. We are among the angels. And many Jews wear white on Yom Kippur, and that we don't need it, that we are just like sustained by God above us, and that it brings this increased connection because we aren't distracted by anything. We're not thinking about anything else besides this connection. And there's something really holy about that and really beautiful. And every year that I can do that, I do, but I've got to tell you, it's really funny that there's like, obviously there's only one day a year where Jews can't eat, as opposed to in other religions where there's fasting is like a more regular part of their religion. Like, I feel like hyperglycemia is like par for the course if you're Jewish. Like, we get hangry, we need to eat. So I'm really glad this is only a once a year occurrence. I also love the symbolism of it being a once a year occurrence, that we have this one day where we stop, where we take inventory of what we've done in the previous year, where we make amends where necessary, where we tie up loose ends, where we correct our wrongs, and then we are asked to let it go, to move on, and to have the best year that we possibly can before we come back to that one day the following year. We don't, I read this somewhere yesterday. We don't get extra credit for extending Yom Kippur, for fasting longer than we're supposed to. We're not supposed to. We're supposed to take this one day where we focus on this so that the other days can be spent living our lives, feeling the joy of being alive, doing mitzvahs, doing good deeds, truly living. And I love how Judaism does that in so many areas, especially around grief. I lost my father over a year ago. The Jewish rules for Shiva, for grief, are equally beautiful. You know, we have timelines around grief, and ways in which we are supposed to grieve that are meant to protect us. One of them is around like socializing after we've lost a loved one. It's actually recommended that we don't go to social gatherings for a year after we've lost our loved one. I did not put this into practice fully, but just knowing that that was something that I could do was really freeing for me, that it was suggested, because I think a lot of us will try to push ourselves into things that we don't really want to be doing right after we lose a loved one and we're grieving. And there are all these wonderful rules. You can look them up if you're interested in learning more, that keep us safe and keep us protected during this time, but also say to us, and you have to live your life now. It is now time that you go and you live more. And I just think all of those pieces of guidance are so beautiful. So I have a wonderful story that I just want to share with you about Yom Kippur that I started thinking about a few days ago, because the season is upon us. And if you have loose ends in your life, or things that maybe are troubling you, that you think about when you're up late at night, those things that keep you awake, and you're like, oh no, I can't believe I said that to this person, or I can't believe I did this, or maybe it's a relationship that went sour and you're not okay with it. I wanted to share this story with you because I have certainly experienced that in my life many times. I've had relationships that have gone awry or that haven't lasted, and I felt unsettled with them. Or I've also had things in my life that I'm not. I don't have enough closure around. So I'm sharing this story in hopes that it might be a little bit of chicken soup for your soul around that. It certainly was for me when it was happening. So each year at Yom Kippur, especially in these last few years, as I've come to view the holiday a bit differently, I view it less as a holiday, as sorry, I view it less as a holiday in which I am apologizing profusely and basically saying sorry for my existence, which was how I used to feel about this holiday, and more a time for me to really make right the things that didn't feel right this year. And it's really a time to be set free from all of that. And I get this opportunity to do it. It's a very, very holy thing that I get to do this. So, um, I've started in these last few years to really ask God in my prayers, and ask myself, like, what is it that I'm unsettled around? What loose ends do I need to tie up? Are there any relationships with people that don't feel settled to me? Is there anything that I feel like I need to apologize for? So last year at this time, what came to my mind when I was saying all that was one relationship, one friendship that I was in right during COVID. It was during COVID, when COVID hit. And it was with somebody who I just loved so dearly, who was so special to me. And we had such a wonderful friendship. And for several reasons, which honestly I didn't understand at the time, um, our friendship ended right around when COVID hit. And I didn't really know if it was because of something I'd done. I suspected it might have been, and it was something that I'd done that was misinterpreted. Either way, I really, really, really missed this person. And it was something that I never let go of. It would come up for me, like I wasn't thinking about it constantly, but I missed this person. And um, I felt like they might not want me in their life anymore, but I was so unsettled about the way things ended with us. Even if it was whoever it was that had quote unquote done something wrong, I didn't really care. I had like very unconditional love for this person and unlimited forgiveness for them, and I figured that it was really like they were upset with me about something, and I was trying to give them their time to be upset. I'd apologize for this thing as well, but another little sidebar is like in Judaism, if you want to convert to Judaism, there's sort of like this idea that you ask 3 times. You ask the rabbi 3 times to convert, and that's not necessarily true anymore, but it used to be the way that like rabbis would make sure this was something that you really wanted. And so I think about that a lot in my life. Like if I owe somebody an amends, if it's not well received, I'll give it 3 shots and then I'm done. Or if I really want something and I keep getting rejected, like I give it 3 times. I ask 3 times, and if I keep getting rejected, then I feel like I need to move on from whatever that want is. And that has been a really great rule for me. So anyway, I'd apologized to this person, I think a couple of times maybe. But that had been years prior. So the last time we'd spoken was like maybe early 2021 or late 2020, I think, actually. It was during the pandemic. And I had such a special relationship with this person. And even though I knew it probably wasn't going to continue and we weren't going to go back to being the friends that we were, I just wanted her to know that I loved her. And like, I wanted her to know how special that time was to me and let her know that I was really genuinely sorry if there was something that I did that ever made her feel upset, because I never wanted that. I was never trying to do that. So I went back to Houston last year to give a speech on Yom Kippur at my old synagogue. And I was going to be there for like about 3 or 4 days. Houston is huge. There's 2 million people in Houston and 7 million people in greater Houston, last I checked. Those stats are probably not correct anymore, so don't quote me. But if I'm wrong, then it's because I'm under the number of people who live in Houston. So needless to say, it's huge. Okay. So I say this prayer on Yom Kippur that if this is the only relationship that keeps popping into my head as like a relationship that I'm not okay with how it ended. I want to be able to make it right. And I say this prayer like if I am meant to make amends with this person and to tie up loose ends with this person, may I please run into them today. I'm asking to run into them in a city full of millions. All right? Wild. So I go and I give my speech. And I sort of go on with my day. Of course, wait. Let me back up for a second. I'm getting ready to give my Yom Kippur speech. It's like the day before, I believe. And of course, I find myself in Target because whenever I'm in Houston, I go to Target. The Targets in Houston are so much better than the ones here, as much as I've come to love my Glenwood Springs Target. So I'm in Target and I've said this prayer and I've run into her, you guys. She is shopping with her 2 kids. I'm on the phone with my husband and I say to my husband, oh my God, what do I do? Like, she's here. And he knows like how important this person is to me. He knows like how much I loved her and how sad I was at the way things ended between the two of us. And he was like, oh my God, are you kidding? Like, get off the phone and go up to her. I'm like trying so hard to respect her boundaries. I don't want to get into her space if she doesn't want me there, but I'm like, this is insane. Like, she's effing here. And like, I said this prayer about running into her this morning. So I go up to her. I'm going to call her, what should I call her? I'm going to call her Jessica to preserve her anonymity in this story. So I'm like, Jessica. And she turns around and almost immediately she sees my face and there's this sort of like joy both of us have. Like, even if you're trying to maybe act like you're upset with somebody, like have you ever done that where like you love someone and you want to express that, but then your brain is telling you, oh no, wait, this person hurt me, I don't want to display that. We both have like this sort of, I felt, unadulterated joy in this moment to see each other, like nothing that had happened in the past had happened before. And she immediately goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry for everything that happened between us. I'm so sorry that like I cut you off and all these other things that had gone on, and I like didn't care. I was like, I love you so much, and I'm so sorry if I ever hurt your feelings. And I'm so happy to see you. And then I ended up telling her the story, and we gave each other a hug, and I was just like electric at seeing her. Like I couldn't believe it. I was floating on a cloud. Um, and it was just like one of the most miraculous moments of my life, obviously. I mean, it's not every day that like you say a prayer about something and then you literally run into the person that you are praying about, like in a city of 2 million, nay, 7 million people. Um, but here's what that story brought home for me was that I think it's possible every year if we do take stock of ourselves and our lives, and there's something about a relationship or an experience that is continuing to make us uncomfortable. Sometimes we can't fix those by ourselves. I don't even think that I could have like I think my number I think we'd blocked each other's numbers. I don't even know, but I don't think I could have gotten in touch with her over the phone. I don't think that was an option for me anymore. So if there's something that like isn't possible for you to do on your own, you can ask for help. Like if you don't if what however you do that, however you surrender, um it is possible for miracles to happen, for these amazing things to happen when we surrender to the idea that we can't do them alone and that we're going to need help. I couldn't have made this happen. I couldn't have made this interaction happen on my own. Um but it was meant to happen. And this person popped into my mind for a reason. And so I've sort of made it a habit that every year on Yom Kippur, I sit down with myself and I ask myself, okay, what is still bothering me? What loose ends do I need to tie up? And this year it was actually an old friend of my husband's who popped into my mind. And I've never done this before because I'm really a true believer in like in a marriage and in a spousal relationship, like it's there are going to be moments where somebody hurts your spouse or your spouse has a disagreement with somebody and you want to get involved. And I have found that most of the time that's not a very good idea. That I can be supportive over here, but like in inserting myself is not usually going to go well. Um, and this person popped into my mind and I was like, you know what? I think this is an exception. I think I'm going to reach out to them and just tell them like how much I miss them and how much my husband misses them. And it actually ended up going pretty well. And I feel like if it's meant to be, it will be. And this holiday shows us that in so many ways. But if there's anything like in your life that is bothering you or that you still think about all the time, I encourage you to think about the fact that it's not totally up to you to fix that on your own, but that if you want it to be fixed, you can ask for help fixing it. It's not something that you need to live with forever. And it might be bothering you for a reason. It might be something that you can't stop thinking about because it's something that you need to make amends around or something that you need closure around. And if that's something that you've attempted to do on your own, um, and it hasn't worked out, like praying about it for me, asking for help around it for me has been instrumental in getting to the next step and like finding healing with so many people in my life. And it's really just something I love doing every year. It's also a huge this time of year is a huge reset button, for Jews and, like, for anybody who celebrates the Jewish New Year, and the Jewish Yom Kippur is considered part of the Jewish New Year, and so for me, moving away from atonement and forgiveness and into sort of the new year and fresh starts and taking stock of what we wanna do differently in the year ahead, this really for me has always been, like, my new year. Like, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day are great, and they're this sort of universal reset button, and I do make resolutions sometimes, or sometimes I have a word of the year. But this time of year is really when I really do the stock taking and I really try to evaluate, okay, what was I doing last year that wasn't working for me? And what do I want to do differently this year? So I had an amazing therapy session yesterday and I talked about this and I talked about my schedule and what I do every day and how I plan my days and this awareness that I have that I really like by default sometimes prioritize a lot of things that I don't want to be doing that I have to do over the things that are really important to me, but that I'm not obligated to anyone else to do. So, like this podcast, for example, this is my passion. I love doing this. I love being on here and connecting with you. I've wanted to do this my whole life, right? But no one is going to not pay me if I don't do it. And no one is going to be disappointed if I don't do it in a way that actually is going to affect my life. So it ends up going on the back burner. But then when I take stock of my life year after year, it's always the thing that I want to be putting more energy into. And we talked about like the underlying reason why I do that and why so many of us plan our days in that way and kind of end up sitting at our desks responding to emails before we take care of the things that we really, really, really need to take care of for ourselves. And for me, it's like 100% a self-worth issue. It's this issue of just thinking like, okay, I'm going to be okay with disappointing myself, but this person isn't. So I'm going to take care of that first. And it's really an old habit at this point. Um, and it's one that I can absolutely change. And so we kind of went through my day and we created like this schedule, like a daily schedule where I can really prioritize the things that are important to me and get other things done, given the fact that I have 3 children, which is a really, really, really tall order. So, of course, one of the things that came up is like, if I'm going to prioritize this, something else has to go. And I think this is something we don't do enough as parents and as mothers, especially. And I was just talking to one of my dear friends about this on the phone. We absolutely have to plan our days and our years and our weeks and our months and our lives if we are parents with a ton of room for the fact that shit is going to hit the fan a lot more often than it's not. You have more than one kid, you're looking at a kid being home from school with an illness in the winter really frequently. It is not an exception, it is the rule. So I think we really screw ourselves, and I by we I mean me, but I think I see this happening a lot by planning our lives as though that's not going to happen when we have kids. It is 100% going to happen. And I think we really serve ourselves when we plan our year knowing that and making so much room for it. So instead of going into this year saying, I'm going to get to work Monday through Friday from 9 to 3 every day when my kids are in school, and that's never going to be interrupted, I'm not going to do that because I'm going to end up disappointed. But instead, I'm going to say, okay, I'm actually going to plan that I'm going to have on average 1 day a week where I can't get to my office, and that every day I'm going to have something that kind of comes up that I wasn't planning on. And I'm going to need to like put aside like 45 minutes for that on average. Sometimes I'm going to have 3 45-minute sets that are all going to come up on a Wednesday and nothing on any other day of the week. But I need to make room for that. A, so I'm not disappointed. B, so I'm not hard on myself needlessly. And C, so that I actually can do the things that I want to do. Because let me tell you something, and this is my last thing. The same friend I was talking about told me that she is regularly approached by people asking her, how do you do everything that you do? And this is a question I get a lot too. And I said to her, she said, I don't understand why people ask me that question because I don't really feel like I do that much, which she does, by the way. I don't really feel like I do that much because there's so many things that I don't do. I don't have my kids in 1,000 extracurriculars after school. I don't like schlep them to a million different places on the weekend. I really stay home all weekend and just recharge my batteries. And I said, well, yes, but people aren't seeing that. They're seeing the final product of what happens when you don't do the things that you actually don't want to be doing, when you do rest on the weekend or whenever you have time, and you really prioritize the things that matter to you. And I said, I think for me, I'm on the same page as you with the extracurriculars. I've totally scaled those down. I don't really like to do that much on the weekends either. And then with the remaining time that I have, I am doing the things that really matter to me for the most part. I still have stuff on my plate that matters less that I don't really want to be doing this year, and I'm going to keep that private for now, but you might end up finding out more about it as the episodes go on. Um but that is why people are saying this to you, because they're seeing that you're prioritizing these things that maybe they don't have time for because they can't slow down for whatever reason. Um, but they're seeing what you're putting out there. And what's going on in the background is that you are saying no. You're saying no constantly. And I call this emptying your bucket. So we talk a lot about filling our buckets and like, what are we putting into ourselves, but what are we also taking off of our plates? And I think taking stock of this as parents very regularly is so important. So I have been doing just that. I did a ton of that yesterday. I'm going to be taking something very major off of my plate very soon, which I'm excited to share with you when the time is right. And I think doing this for ourselves is one of the biggest acts of kindness that we can do, and it gives us room to really do the things that we want to be doing, because there is time. There's not time to do everything, but there's time to do what's really important to us if we really look at it, if we really take stock. So this time of year, Yom Kippur, the Jewish New Year, for me, is not just a time for making amends and making things right, but it's a time for making things right in all areas of my life. So what did I do last year that wasn't working for me? And what do I want to do differently this year that is? If you can give yourself a gift of, whether you're Jewish or not, taking a day, a few hours to really look at that, I really believe it just makes such a huge difference. We all deserve that. We all deserve a moment to press the brakes, to ask ourselves what's not working for us, what is, what do we want to do more of, what do we want to do less of in the coming year. And when we make this a regular practice, when we do this in our lives regularly, our lives start to look more and more like what we've always wanted them to look like. And everybody deserves that. Everybody deserves that grace. You deserve that grace. I'm so grateful to have you as my listener today. I am wishing a wonderful, a sweet new year to all who celebrate. And even if you don't and you got something from this episode, I'm so grateful to hear that. And tell me about it. I love to hear from you in my DMs. You can shoot me a message anytime at Laura Max Rose on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. And I hope you guys have a wonderful next few days until I join you again next time. Take care, guys.